Hello and welcome to the Runna Podcast. Now strap in for this one because today we spoke to Jordan Adams, one of the FTD Brothers, for one of the most inspiring conversations we have ever had. Devastatingly, Jordan lost his mum to a rare form of dementia, but decided to get himself tested and unfortunately found out he carries the same gene. But he used this as a license to live and has completed some amazing challenges to raise over £250,000 for dementia. We discussed his incredible journey of running the length of the UK with his brother and what it really means to live your life to the fullest. You'll love listening to this episode. Let's get into it. Hi Jordan, how are you?
Very well, thank you, yeah.
Thank you for coming on the Runna Podcast. I can't wait to delve into your story, but we'll start right back at the beginning. What got you moving and into running on day one?
I think looking back, I've always been into sport, kind of grew up on team sport, football, cricket. My dad got me into it from as kind of as early as I can remember. But running came along really through learning my mum's diagnosis. So back in 2010, my mum was formally diagnosed with a rare type of frontotemporal dementia. So she was 47 when she was diagnosed. I was 15 years old at the time. So in my last couple of years at high school, which is obviously like a critical time in your life. And yeah, over the next 6 years, we had to I became my mum's primary carer alongside my dad and my two siblings. And it was a really difficult time, but part of that journey, I guess, after learning about my mum's diagnosis, I wanted to raise some money for a dementia charity. So in 2013, I decided to commit to kind of a sporadic half marathon with some family and friends. So I ran the Birmingham Half in 2013. Raised quite a substantial amount of money. It was great, but it's weird actually because looking back, I didn't actually run then any sort of race. I continued to kind of stay fit for like the sport I was involved in, so I was still playing football at a reasonable level and things like that, but I didn't actually run again then till 2020. So yeah, that was kind of my first experience of running back in 2013.
So how old were you when you did that first half marathon?
I'd have been 18 years of age. So yeah, it was...
And basically did it on a whim with the historical fitness you had from all of the sport you did growing up?
Yeah, basically, yeah, massively into team sports. As I say, pre-season and stuff was about as much running as I ever did. Sometimes I'd go out and do I'd never really recorded, never watched or anything like that at that stage. So yeah, I used to go out and do a little bit of running, maybe some shorter stuff, some sprints and things like that. But yeah, first time kind of doing any sort of organised race or real running. So.
And I guess the thing you had up your sleeve was the purpose and the reason why you're doing that run. And then that's, I guess, transpired through your journey that we can go on to learn about as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. And ultimately that's now become my life. I've kind of just grounded myself in that purpose and made it kind of my life's work. And I guess running is just like threading through the middle of it all. So yeah.
You said you started running because of your mum's diagnosis. Was that more to get out for like mental health? You said you became her primary caregiver, or was it because you wanted to raise money?
I think initially it was an outlet. It was kind of having that space for kind of my mental health, other than team sport that I was involved in, which is fantastic. But sometimes, in those early years as a teenager, my roles as kind of a caregiver to my mum went from, reassuring her when she was confused or stopping her from wanting to climb out of windows and doors and trying to get into her car because her license had been revoked, to in the last kind of 18 months, 2 years of her life, when she was fully incontinent, you used to have to pick her up out of her chair in the front room, take her to and from the toilet, clean her up after she'd had an accident, to then feeding her, when she could no longer kind of do that for herself. So yeah, I think when you're ultimately caring for somebody who's terminally ill, you need that space to kind of clear your mind and find some joy. And running, fortunately, is something that I would openly say, and I know lots of people say it, but it has contributed to saving my life and giving me some sort of quality of life back, particularly in those really difficult times caring for my mum. And obviously everything that I've learned since her diagnosis in terms of what lies ahead for my own future. So
I can't imagine how hard it's all been, and I'm so sorry that you've been through so much. But no, it's a really incredible story that you have. Was it just you running, or were you running with your brother?
No, it's again Cian, my little brother, he's 5 years younger than me. and he again was into team sport, but the only reason why he got into running was for the fundraising. So we lost my mum sadly in 2016 after 6 years of caring for her, and 2 years later I took a genetic test to find out whether basically I was a carrier of this rare genetic mutation which causes the FTD. So I've lost my mum and 12 other relatives to this same form of frontotemporal dementia, all getting symptoms in their mid-40s and losing their lives within 6 to 10 years of diagnosis. So I took a test back in 2018 following my sister, who fortunately got the all clear. And I was told on the 12th of September 2018 that I am a carrier of the MAPT mutation. So that categorically means that I'm going to get dementia within the next 10 to 15 years. And one of the first things I said to my genetic consultant at the time was, what can I do? I know there's no cure, I know there's no treatment. And she suggested two things. She suggested one was that I got involved in a research study and actively contribute to research itself. But then she also said, you could think about raising money. And as soon as she said that, all I could think about was, okay, I need to start running marathons, because that's what everybody does when they raise money. You know, I've grown up watching kind of the London Marathon, and it's Cian has really kind of followed in my footsteps since kind of my diagnosis in 2018. He obviously learnt the same in 2023, that he's also a carrier, and that's when the FTD Brothers were formed, and that's when he really kind of got on board, and it was actually his crazy idea to come up with trying to run the entire length of the UK in 2024. So yeah.
Wow. And before we talk about running the length of the country, I think taking a test like that is so scary. Did you contemplate not having the test to find out?
Yeah, so I mean, prior to, obviously, I say I lost my mom in 2016. Kennedy, visually, kind of in physical appearance, resembles my mom in so many ways, in so many characteristics. And I think because of that, she kind of convinced herself that she was going to have the same fate, and she was going to have to live with FTD. So she made the decision kind of right after my mum had passed away that she wanted to find out, whereas I was completely opposite. I was kind of 20 years old, I think, when my mum passed away, and I kind of just wanted to put that in a box and kind of bottled up my grief, and to be honest, came quite an angry kind of person because of it, and I didn't want to know at that stage my own fate, but kind of seeing how inspiring and brave my sister was and getting kind of a positive result, and one that meant that she could then go on to have a family, which she craved so much with a long-standing partner, and yeah, that kind of gave me the courage to then want to find out myself, and it's a decision that I've never regretted. Ultimately, it's changed my life like absolutely, like incredibly in so many ways. And I often say to people, it's as much a blessing as it is a curse. You know, who at 23 years old gets kind of that stark reality where they're told that, you know, you're going to lose your life within the next 10 to 15 years if nothing changes. So it's encouraged me to do things that I probably never would have. You know, I've now run marathon distance 49 times, you know, and I've only just turned 30. So it's certainly a difficult decision to have. And my brother, again, took a long time to make the choice whether he wanted to find out. But it's one that I've definitely never regretted. And, you know, even though we wish the result was different, like 1,000 times over, the impact that we've had on people's lives since both of our diagnoses is evidence to say that, you know, it was the right call.
Yeah. I think you said once that you called your diagnosis like a license to live. What does that mean for you?
I think ultimately I was stuck in a period where the uncertainty of not knowing was taking hold of my life so much that I'd stopped living any sort of quality of life. I was kind of spiraling out of control with depression and anxiety, just because I was having like sleepless nights about the fact whether I was going to lose my life to the same thing that I watched and cared for my mum have. And that's scary, you know. I think ultimately lots of us are scared of dying in the Western world. It's not a topic that's particularly talked about. And somebody ultimately delivered a result to me in 2019 that meant I pretty much know what way I'm going to leave this world and when, and I know what's going to happen to me, and it's not pretty because I watched happen to my mum. But it also made me realise that life is incredibly short. You know, there's so many things that go on in all of our lives, and I have to be grateful, and something that I continue to kind of advocate for is expressing gratitude for the things that you do have and that I have had. And I've had a great childhood. I was blessed with two great parents, two great siblings, and, you know, being here today, having this conversation with you guys, they genuinely, you know, it's absolutely incredible to be working with Runna, and, going to run Berlin and things like that, I'm very grateful for. So, I think beneath it all, a license to live is making sure that I do my mum proud every day, because if I didn't wake up every day with this purpose and I want to get up and do things that are positive, it wouldn't be kind of a justification of the legacy that she left behind and the person that she was. So that's something that I definitely keep in mind all the time.
And I guess knowing that your life is limited in time maybe means you get out the door, you do more adventures, you do everything and seize every moment. Is that different for your sister? Or like, she's been given the all clear and she's going to have a completely normal trajectory of the length of her life. Does she also now, like, having tasted the chance that it would be gone early, is she just as like time is limited? Like, because I think that's a really interesting, almost like mental process to have to go through, even to be given the all clear as well.
Sure, yeah, it's very difficult. And, I think that what I have to stress is, obviously, although me and Cian are going through something incredibly difficult, living with the result, living knowing that you're the only one out of the siblings not having it is also a huge burden to carry. There's a lot of survivor's guilt there for my sister. But I think, for all of us, we know kind of in its essence how life short is, and how short life is and how short it can be. And, don't take anything for granted. And she's very much kind of embodied herself in what my mum was, in being a great mum herself. So she's got two amazing daughters who have brought so much joy into our lives and continue to do so. And she's a fantastic mum, and she tries to do as much with them, and her husband, he's coming to Berlin with me as my +1, because he got a charity place through Alzheimer's Research UK we fundraise for. So it'll be a special moment in Berlin. But she definitely tries to do as much as she can, like me and Cian are as well, to live life to the fullest.
Because, I mean, Anya, we've spoken to a few people who've had shorter lifespans, but I think it really teaches me in the same way that we should all live our lives knowing that we don't know what's coming, because we don't all know what's coming. There's hundreds of other illnesses or diseases or unfortunate accidents that could happen to anyone, and we should all live in the moment and really not plan for the 50-year trajectory, because you never know what's coming.
Definitely. And I think it's probably important for me to say as well, even though I'm probably more than likely going to lose my life to dementia, me and Cian also very often say, we wake up with the knowledge knowing that it can be taken away from you in an instant. Just to say, because we've been given this diagnosis doesn't mean that something else might not happen to us. And we're very aware of that. So we take each day as it comes. We're very blessed to be have our health now. And as I say, we're trying to do as much of what we enjoy and makes us happy whilst we can, and live life to the absolute fullest, for sure.
I think it is amazing to hear about it, but also the strength of character while you talk us through this is incredible. I think the strength of character will be something that must have shone through when you ran the length of the UK. So you decided to do that with your brother. Tell us about the idea through to planning it to standing on the start line.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mentioned to you, I ran my first half marathon back in 2013, and it wasn't until 7 years later I got the opportunity to run the London Marathon for the first time. And unfortunately, COVID came along and stopped me. So I ended up running a marathon in my hometown of Redditch, whilst everyone was socially distanced out supporting me. And then finally got the chance to run the London Marathon the following year. And from there, I just got the bug for marathon running in particular, kind of long distance running. And that kind of, the training itself gave me that space to kind of get away from kind of the chaos of my reality. So I started doing crazy challenges. Like in 2022, I ended up running 7 marathons in 7 days. So I ran from Birmingham to London along the Grand Union Canal, finishing with the London Marathon on the Sunday. And then from there, literally 6 months after doing that amazing feat and raising like £18,000 for dementia research, my brother found out that he's also a carrier, and he was 9 when my mum was diagnosed. He's a completely different character to me, very quiet, unassuming, and we were unsure how he was going to react, and it took him a few months to kind of get his head around everything, and obviously he's still dealing with things today. But in like May of 2023, he sent me this massive paragraph that was basically outlining this crazy plan to run the entire length of the UK. We were going to set a goal to try and raise £100,000 in a calendar year for charity, and start creating social media content. And from there, we basically got a committee of family and friends together and started planning the route. We got local businesses to sponsor kind of all of the provisions we needed, from 2 motorhomes to food and drink, and we put this plan together, and I started building kind of content through socials. We ran the London Marathon together that April. I followed that up in the July by running 100 miles in 24 hours around our local park where my mum's got a memorial bench. And by the time we got to John O'Groats, the start, we'd raised £50,000. So we were already halfway to our target before even running the length of the UK. And then, we embarked on this kind of 31-day journey across the UK, eventually finishing in Land's End on the 1st of October. And we went on to raise £250,000 in 2024, and just met so many amazing people along the way on that journey. People connected with us online, but the people we met across the journey of running each day. We did 28 back-to-back ultra marathons, and the kindness that we had throughout the trip, people willing to give us donations or give us food or drink along the way, so much kindness and generosity, and obviously the donations that we received as well. It really helps you get through some really difficult days. We saw all the weather elements. As I say, some days we were running like 60k, and it was really, really difficult, through like Cairngorm National Park. I used to complain about running around my hometown of Redditch because it's quite hilly, and then you're running through national parks in Scotland and it's like a completely different world of elevation, and we faced so many challenges. But I think to see overwhelmingly the kind of the generosity and kindness that people showed to us and really connected with our story was just incredible, and kind of memories that me and my brother and my whole family who were on the trip will stay with us forever for sure. Incredible.
Did you ever imagine the response from the community was going to be like that? And I also imagine going through what you guys are going through can probably feel quite lonely and isolating, and then to have this whole backing that you got and the community and the support must have been pretty surreal.
I think we were kind of blown away to the scale of what the support became, because originally we reached out, said to local businesses, people who knew us in the local area, and the support that we had locally still to this day is absolutely phenomenal. We're so very blessed that people in our hometown have got behind us so much. But to see how it kind of grew exponentially across the month. I mean, by day 18, when we were lucky enough to go on BBC Breakfast for the third time in a matter of 3 weeks, we ended up crashing through our £100,000 total, and we came off the live sofa, and we were on about £60,000, I think, by that stage, and we refreshed the Just Giving, and it was like glitching. It was going up by tens of thousands every second, and it was a feeling you couldn't really describe. It was really surreal, and we were just blown away by people's support and the magnitude that it kind of became, the whole journey, and people were kind of engrossed in following us, and luckily they've stayed with us since as well.
And to think when that doctor told you there's two things you can do, either be part of research or part of fundraising, to think there'd be a moment where you're on BBC Breakfast and then you come off refresh and just thousands of pounds are rolling in, which will make meaningful impact.
Absolutely incredible. Something that obviously has affected us, but I don't think until we set this challenge we realised how many people dementia is actually affecting, particularly here in the UK. And our story connected with so many people because I think most of us probably know somebody with a living experience of dementia, whether it's a loved one or a friend, and it's hurt a lot of people. And when something hurts you and then you see, two young lads, I guess, on the telly trying to do something positive about it, we really resonated with people. And I think what me and Cian try and say is that because we're kind of stewarding our own story rather than most people who go through a dementia experience are usually stewarding the story of a loved one, I think people were able to take a lot of hope and a lot of comfort from seeing two people kind of take the baton and try and kind of advocate for more to be done in the dementia space as a whole, not just funding research, but kind of changing the landscape for all those people who have been affected. And that's what we're on a mission. It used to be a monetary target about raising £1 million before we die, but it's much more than that. I quit my job in December to be a full-time advocate and really change the world of what a dementia diagnosis means. And hopefully by the time that, dementia takes my life, because it's probably going to, in the next 10 to 15 years, people will be able to remember me and my brother as two people who actively contributed towards a cure and really changed the landscape of dementia for millions of people in the years to come. So it's about, I know it's a bit cliche, but it's about creating a legacy that will stand the test of time. You know, we're currently trying to set up our own foundation that will actively serve people living with dementia right now in the community in lots of different ways. And yeah, it's not just about the fundraising, it's about helping real people who have experienced the heartbreak of dementia.
Well, I want to ask, running the length of the country, how hard was that? Or was there this just like deep pull inside you that meant that like the steps themselves were the easy bit?
I think that there is an element of that to it. I think if you ask my dad always says like, no matter what pain or challenges would have been met by, that I'd have just got through it anyway, just because I had that determination. I kind of had that fire in my belly to really want to do it, because ultimately the cause is just much bigger than, you know, running any sort of distance. It was just what exactly we were running for behind it that meant that I was just never going to give up. That's not to say that the first week was a real eye-opener, for sure.
And what did that entail practically?
So we got into a routine. Obviously, I'd trained quite religiously for it, kind of just time on my feet more than anything. So running kind of consecutive days, trying to really hone in on like recovery, making sure our nutrition was kind of, I guess, optimal for what we were doing, the miles we were getting. So make sure we had the right amount of calories. But our days would usually start in the morning. We were very well looked after, me and my brother. We'd be waking up in the morning and people would be serving us like porridge, and the calories in the breakfast got bigger and bigger as the days went on. But every day after we finished a run, we'd get a massage and we'd have an ice bath, those type of things. And then you'd be just trying to prioritise sleep. But when you're like in close quarters in like a 6-berth motorhome, you know, it can become difficult with aches and pains. And I think the first week, with the amount of elevation in Scotland and the microclimate you go through, 1 minute it's like blistering hot, the next minute it's like gale force winds blowing in from the coast, and then all of a sudden you're in the middle of like a thunderstorm, and it's just a bit crazy. And as I say, the elevation, kind of what we put our bodies through was quite relentless. And I think for the first week it was really difficult. Waking up in the morning was difficult to get yourself in a space where you needed to get going, especially in a place that was really isolating. We weren't seeing a lot of people. It was just our kind of small team for most of the time. But after that week, it's amazing how the human body adjusts. I don't know whether it's kind of a mindset thing or the adrenaline of kind of seeing people really starting to get behind us and the support that we were getting. But yeah, after that, it was kind of just focusing on getting to the end of each day. And yeah, a lot of it's a blur now when you look back, but at the time it was a slog, and each day we literally took one day at a time and just tried to get from point A to point B. And yeah, a lot of it, you look back on some of the days that we did and the routes that we had, you know, for kind of 2,000 meters of elevation, and just create some crazy routes and stories for sure. But yeah, an experience that I'll remember forever for sure.
Were there any moments of questioning whether you guys could go on?
Not really. I mean, 3 days in, up in the Cairngorms, my brother was really worried. I had like a bony stress injury on my left foot, and my foot had literally swollen up like a balloon. And we're thinking 3 days into like a 903 mile ultra run across a month, it's not going to happen. But luckily, I did what I could, took painkillers, and I didn't get a stress fracture or anything like that. It seemed to go away. But Nigel, we had a guy run with us he's former multiple Ironman, Marathon des Sables, kind of real tough 68-year-old like ultra runner, and he had 2 Achilles tendinopathies with like a week of running left to go, and he had to go to some real dark places to get through it. But I think when you see somebody like that, he at the time was actively living with prostate cancer, chose to champion our cause and help us raise money. And when you have someone like that running next to you, I think your excuses for giving up kind of go out the window. There's not to say that there weren't days where you're thinking, my God, what have I done here? You know, this is, how am I going to get through today, and how many miles we've got left? But that feeling of kind of, I remember seeing Land's End in the distance and like hairs on the back of your neck stand up of kind of what we've achieved, and then turning the corner like into the visitor centre, and there was just a sea of orange t-shirts because Alzheimer's Research UK had provided all of our family and friends with like these orange t-shirts, and everyone cheering us coming in. It's just the feeling, like so many emotions like being overcome by all, similarly to like when you cross the London Marathon finish line. I always seem to be overcome with this wave of emotion and a lot of tears, a lot of happy tears, and kind of almost a disbelief at what we'd achieved, not just the fundraising but the distance we'd ran as well. So yeah, incredible.
Yeah. Obviously that's a humongous feat, like running the length of the UK, both physically and mentally. And the primary reason was to raise awareness, to raise money for such an amazing cause. Is there any part of you, because I'm like, if I was told my life was going to be cut short, I'd want to make sure like I reached my potential in that amount of time. And I wanted to, push myself and see, I wouldn't want to like leave any stone untouched kind of thing. Is there a part of you that wanted to prove yourself what you're capable of?
I think so. I think when I go back to that kind of 18-year-old who ran that half marathon, I was never kind of blessed athletically. I always had to work very hard to achieve any sort of goals. I remember caring for my mum and being like a chubby teenager and going to school, and I was devastated because I couldn't get in the high school football team because I basically couldn't get around the pitch because I couldn't run. And it's weird because I look back on those days and I kind of use it as fuel as well as my diagnosis to be like, what am I actually capable of, and I really think that, I've got some really crazy kind of plans for the future of kind of how I want to test myself and things that I want to do. And I think definitely there's kind of little itches to scratch, I think, that I want to do, and seeing what as an individual I am capable of, and trying to fulfill that potential for sure. Yeah.
So what is that? Because you've obviously got the Berlin Marathon that you're training towards, but what do you think about beyond that, and also what do you want to achieve in Berlin?
Sure. I mean, I started off, as I say, running marathons. I think I just got under 4 hours for my first one, which I was absolutely delighted with, and my journey since then has kind of been slowly trying to get quicker and quicker. My current PB is 3:08 over marathon distance, which I was really pleased with in Paris earlier this year, but I've kind of set myself a bit of a big goal. I'm trying to go sub 3 in Berlin, so I'm chasing something that maybe slightly out of reach, but we're going to give it a go anyway. And more than anything, I just want a PB and run a really kind of solid race in Berlin, take it all in. But yeah, definitely going to leave it all out there for sure. Flat track as well, which helps. But yeah, before that, I'm actually running the Sydney Marathon for the charity, so I'm 34k training run that day, so we're going to get the 34k training run in and jog the rest of it. But beyond that, I think there's little bits of me that I think we mentioned earlier off air, maybe going into Ironmans. I'm not a particularly strong swimmer, but I think it'd be something to really test myself. But also ultra marathons really intrigue me, like multi-stage ultras, Marathon des Sables, like I mentioned earlier, something like that I'd really like to do. But not races wise, I've got this thing that I really want to run coast to coast Canada. There's a guy called Terry Fox who left this huge legacy in Canada for raising money towards cancer research, because he lost his leg to an incurable cancer, and he embarked on this marathon of hope back in the 80s, where he ran from one coast to the other coast, and he got 143 days in, and unfortunately had to stop, and he never was able to complete that because he ended up dying of cancer. But he set up the Terry Fox Foundation, which has continued to raise like hundreds of millions of dollars in Canada while people going out and running marathons for his foundation. And it's kind of a big like pipe dream, but I'd love to create that kind of legacy and retrace his steps. I've been like a big admirer of everything that he did.
Oh, wow.
and things like that. So yeah, something like that, like a coast to coast run in Canada, I'd love to do, but definitely dip my toe in the water in ultra marathons, I think is the next thing.
Wow. Well, all of that sounds incredible. And the bit that I hope that you haven't forgotten is, have you also got other things that are personal, fun, silly things that you have on the list? Because like, it's incredible, all of these things to help and to make an impact, but like, have you got the other list of silly, fun things to do as well?
I think that's something that I've had to reflect on a lot lately, because I think I've kind of been so engrossed in making an impact, and that giving myself really kind of purpose and giving me my life back to a certain extent, that I've probably gone too far that way and forgot to enjoy myself and do the silly things like my wife, bless her, she's had to put up with so much in the last 12 months in terms of the sacrifices that I've made with like quitting my job, taking 6 weeks off to run the length for the UK, and she sacrificed we've not been on honeymoon yet or anything like that. So I think a lot of it is like travel, just doing things like you say, like quite spontaneously. But yeah, I don't know, have you got any fun things that you can recommend me doing? Or
I was actually meant to go skydiving yesterday, but it got cancelled because of the weather.
Wow.
But no, I think like everything that you're doing is incredible, and so doing emotionally inspiring, and just this force of like, it almost feeds that energy that you've done one thing, it makes such an impact, it makes you think of the next bigger and bigger thing. But I think it's also just so important to make sure that like you also get to live the fun, light-hearted stuff for yourself as well.
Sure, yeah, and I think that is definitely something that until recently, when my partner and I actually got to go away for a week in Portugal about 3 weeks ago, where I reflected on it and thought, you know what, I actually need to start putting those things a little bit more to the forefront. I think travel's a huge one. I'd love to see more parts of the world, and hopefully, you know, with you guys running a few races in different parts of the world. But you know, taking my wife on a honeymoon and seeing more of the world. And me and my brother often talk about traveling to different parts while we can, and definitely looking to do some more, like you say, light-hearted stuff that bring us some more joy. Needs to become more of a priority, definitely.
Wow, no, it is absolutely incredible to hear about everything you've achieved already, the impact you're having, and all of these goals looking ahead. We're going to segue over to Steph with our coaching tip of the week.
Have you thought about your pacing plan? Whether you're running a 5K or a marathon, it's really good to think about this beforehand. When the gun goes off, you want to avoid starting off too fast. Aim to progress your pace or effort as you move through the race. This is particularly important for longer events. Don't overcook it at the start.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by the Runner app, the #1 rated running coaching service worldwide. If you want to try the app today, use code podcast25 for 2 weeks totally for free. And please do remember to rate, follow and subscribe to us on your listening platform to help us climb the rankings and so that we can keep bringing you the most interesting and amazing guests.
Thanks for that, Steph. I'm going to bring us back with our discussion for the week. So, you've made such huge impacts already, but what do you think is the biggest thing you've had to learn?
Oh God, that's a difficult question. I think probably patience. I think there's been times where I've probably felt like the world's owed me a lot more than probably it does, in terms of I've worked extremely hard for certain things. But through it all, what I've learned is if you're patient enough and you continue to kind of stay true to your principles, that things will come along, opportunities will come along, and it will be worth it. So I think patience is something that I've had to learn. It's something that my wife has kind of very much tried to instill in me, because I think there's been periods of time where I've got quite frustrated or quite down at kind of where I'm at, whether it be chasing certain running goals or trying to build this kind of legacy in terms of building this audience in the crazy world of social media. And it can be quite toxic at times in terms of you get really engrossed in it. And I think she teaches me to really be patient and just trust the process a little bit more, and whatever will be. So yeah, definitely patience is something I've had to learn and continue to work on, for
But
sure.
it must be so hard to have patience when you're like, I don't have the time, like the time that everybody else has.
I think that's why I'm still learning that, because ultimately I think that's why I probably say, yeah, I feel like the world owes me that, in terms of, you know, I want to do everything now 100 miles an hour, because I know that ultimately every day I'm getting closer to living with FTD. But that doesn't mean that, you know, everything's going to be given to me here and now. I have to continue to work hard, stay grounded, and yeah, be patient more than anything, and hope that those opportunities come along and we can continue this kind of fantastic work that we're trying to do. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, we're going to turn the conversation to slightly more silly and light-hearted. And to start that off with a would you rather. Would you rather run, as you said, coast to coast of Canada, but you have to stop the day before you finish and you never complete, and you still go on to raise an enormous amount of money and it makes a great impact, but you didn't finish it, or you have to do the whole thing without socks, and you make the same impact, you raise the same amount of money, but you have to go through the pain of that entire distance without your socks.
I think I'd do it without socks. I do, just because I think to say you finished it and you did it barefoot, then there'd be many people out there to say they ran coast to coast Canada barefoot.
You get a few funny looks along the way.
Yeah.
You'd be there like limping on like day 40, and they'd be like, "You're not got any socks." You'd be like, "Oh no, I just."
There'd probably be
left
a lot
my
of
home.
frostbite there as well in certain regions of Canada, so for sure it'd be difficult. And God knows if my feet would survive. But yeah, let's go barefoot.
Okay, well, I do think you should pack your socks.
Oh yeah, sorry, in socks. Yeah.
Okay, my would you rather. Would you rather do a marathon, say like half an hour slower than your PB, and you've got your whole community following along and it's an amazing achievement, or you break that sub-3 barrier but you can tell no one that you were doing that race or that you did it?
I'd rather have the community there. I think go and run it, enjoy the marathon distance, have people cheer you on. I mean, what's the point? You put yourself through the pain of running a sub-3 in my shoes and then not being able to talk about it, surely. It's the bragging rights we want the sub-3 for, surely.
Anya, I feel like it's a rhetorical question. Would you rather, Anya, 2:33 in London Marathon next year and tell no one, you can't even post about it, no Strava upload, just like... The world doesn't even know you ran it. You wore like
conspiracy theory.
No fake tan, no makeup. No one even knew you ran the course that day. Not on your Strava, or it goes up 2:35, but you did run 2:33, and you cannot say that it was wrong. So the entire world sees 2:35, but you did 2:33.
When you put it on me, because in my head I was like, I'd prefer just to do it and not tell anyone. But then it's so hard to put yourself through that and not be able to say it.
So you're taking 2:35.
I think I'd have to take 2:35, yeah.
What, rather than 2:33, tell no one?
But when I was saying it in my head, I was like 100% 2:33 or like that.
Surely that you'd still want to have ran 2:33 and know that you did it. Because also if you pick that option and do it in stealth mode, you still have that like strength, that fitness that then maybe you can put down one day when you're allowed to come out of stealth mode.
And I could do it both. I could go back and do another like
replicate
good enough
it.
Marathon with the community and have that sub PB like in my pocket. Yeah, okay, we'll do both.
Definitely feel like there's a lot of external validation that does help spur us on to push ourselves to our best.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, last one. Would you rather do joggle or 982 laps of your local track again?
As in, is that the same distance?
I actually don't know.
So 982 laps is about 245 miles.
Okay.
I'd rather do joggle. The laps of the track was horrendous.
So is that is the longest you've ran?
In one distance.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't complete the 982 laps challenge. I got to 455 laps. So I ran, I think it was 72 miles the first day, then followed by about 66 the following day. I was trying to run it in one weekend. It was the last weekend before Christmas.
And is 982 a special number?
It's led to believe by Alzheimer's Research UK that there are currently 982,000 people living with a dementia diagnosis in the UK. So I chose to run 982 laps. So in the end, I got to 455 laps, and my brother came down, took some laps off me. We got all the local community down to the track to kind of complete the challenge on my behalf. But in terms of a challenge, joggle all over, that the track was like hell. It was difficult. It was bitterly cold. Like last weekend before Christmas in December, I made a couple of rookie errors in terms of undergarments, which led to horrendous chafing. So I got to basically 120 miles into trying to complete this 245 mile challenge, and the pain was unbearable. I could hardly walk. So going off kind of what I went through, definitely joggle would be the more picturesque and enjoyable experience. I
Easy.
think. Yeah.
Juggle. Easy.
Wow, that probably just speaks to the scale of how hard that challenge would have been then.
Yeah, for sure.
Our final question that we like to ask everyone is, if you could design your dream race, where would you put it in the world? How far would you run? What would be the food and drink at the finish line? And who is giving out the finish line award?
Oh, it's difficult. It's difficult. I've got kind of my bucket list destination is Hawaii. When we were looking at honeymoon destination, me and my wife, we always wanted to go to Hawaii. So I'd probably say a marathon in Hawaii.
Honolulu Marathon.
Yeah, marathon in Hawaii, just because I love the marathon distance. Food and drink, it's kind of probably be a bit cliche, but pizza is always my go-to after a marathon. And then I'd probably have a couple of different drinks. So I'd have the Red Ambulance straight after, a little cold can of Coke.
I was like, what?
Red Ambulance, so they call it. So cold can of Coke, but then probably a session IPA. Nice little session IPA. It's toast, hopefully running a sub 3 in Hawaii.
That's quite something in the heat of Hawaii.
I was going to say, I'm dreaming here. And then if I could have anybody, I guess, present me with a medal, I know it's never going to happen, but my mum, of course. If my mum could be there to see me run a marathon or present me with a medal, that would be absolutely unbelievable. So maybe in my wildest imagination, or in another world. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm sure your mum is so incredibly proud, and I think so are we. And following you and your journey with your brother, it is truly like the most incredible story ever, and you're doing amazing things, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me for this conversation, and I can't wait for Berlin. So yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on, and good luck for everything.
Thank you.